Avatar: The Last Airbender is a breathtaking show. Considering that it originally was designed to appeal to mostly children, Avatar absolutely hits home in the themes department. Themes of love, loss, and even war are being discussed in 61 episodes. For a kids show, that's some pretty heavy stuff. Not even to mention the new way of telling a coherent and cohesive story in a children cartoon. And a pioneer of this technique certainly was Avatar: The Last Airbender. With character arcs ranging from Zuko to Aang, to Katara to Toph, there is a multiplicity of different themes: how to learn acceptance, discipline, how to learn dealing with post-traumatic stress disorder. Really valuable lessons and messages for kids who first of all have to learn about the world, who certainly are very influenced by a show with action and suspense, being on the standard Nickelodeon afternoon program. But today I want to talk about my personal favorite episode of Avatar, and also my favorite TV episode. I want to look at how it manages to enhance every single important storytelling aspect to bring the story further to the big climax that is to follow. With that out of the way, let me introduce you to Book 3, Episode 13, Firebending Masters. As an episode that at first might feel pretty insignificant in comparison to episodes like Zuko Alone or The Day of the Black Sun, one could easily overlook the insane greatness that lingers inside this 23-minute-long piece of art. With the help of 5 important criteria that a great story should have, I will now analyze Firebending Masters to see if they can all be applied. Plot/character development, tone, world building, and themes should all be taken into consideration, before I, at the end, will talk about very personal and subjective topics linking me to this episode. As a follow-up to one of the most important parts of the whole show, with Zuko finally joining the gang, this episode has to pave a way towards the finale of the whole show, and it does that with amazing plot development. In the first third of the episode, we can see improvement in Zuko interacting with Team Avatar with an at least semi-natural attitude. The Fire Prince does actively seek out conversation concerning his loss of firebending. While still being snappy as always, we of course don't want unnatural development. But the first team member that Zuko actively has an acceptable relationship with is Aang. Even before they go on their field trip together, their connection was already hinted to us in the Blue Spirit, for example. This brings us to the Avatar himself, Aang, because he also has to actively overcome his fear of firebending that established itself already in Book 1. Both characters have a complicated issue that they have to deal with and eventually overcome, only within one episode. We could even add on that the actual reason why they want to seek out the Sun Warriors, Zuko's issue with firebending and his reliance on
rage.
Rage is not the answer anymore, but harmony and balance. Now, whereas we've talked about the various plot and character elements that makes this episode an absolute blast, there also is a quite interesting tone this episode crafts. It can take itself really seriously, but can also drop some really funny lines here and there. The introductions at the beginning of the episode, with Zuko and Aang interacting and Sokka coming to do nothing else other than wanting to annoy, you might think that this is going to be a funnier episode. Just another repeat of Nightmares and Daydreams or The Headband. But then you think about the title, Firebending Masters, and then it starts to hit you that an important episode is ahead of you. The Sun Chief, for example, is also a great representation of why this episode can keep balance. He usually is very strict and disciplined, but after Aang and Zuko got accepted by the Masters, a comedic side is emerging, but never annoying comedy, so as to not take away this grand and spectacular moment, but for setting an appropriate tone What also is important rather than comedy? Right, aesthetics. When Zuko and Aang visit the territory of the Sun Warriors, the tone is unlike anything we have ever felt before. There is a certain exoticness present, with totally different architecture, art and lore. After it gets nighttime, the city feels cool, yet ruined, a living full of harmony and balance with nature. But then the effect is all the more apparent as daylight shines upon the hidden city, augmenting the purpose of this whole civilization, to honor fire and its effect on the world. And in pretty much the most aesthetical moment, as Aang and Zuko stand high above the ground, awaiting the Master's judgment, the sun unites the composition in glorifying symmetry, speaking of burning passion, of fire. And then there is this. An overload of colors, feels and vibes, all balanced out into a vortex of artistic mastery, occurring at the critical point of character/plot development as well. Aang and Zuko know how to utilize fire to create life and harmony. But don't you dare forget about the world building, one of the most, if not the most extensive aspect of this whole episode. As learning about the sources for firebending and earthbending, the viewer can now piece together a lot of missing information. With badger molds and dragons, we now know that all of these elements were originally bended by animals, which adds continuity. If we move on to the main setting itself, the Sun Warrior City, with its art, culture and history, the introduction of a whole other tribe of people in only one episode is breathtaking. First, let's have a look at the Avatar map. It can help us finding this ancient place. And right here, at the outermost west, only one jump away from the Fire Nation, the most dangerous state there is. This implies that the Sun Warriors actually hid themselves there. Maybe in the past, the whole area of the Fire Nation was civilized by these warriors, only now being shrunken down with force and brutality. The fact that the Sun Warriors have their very own art and culture can be seen by the architectural components. With Fire Nation architecture, we can see sharp points and harsh angles, whereas here we are being greeted with round and smooth, almost bold work, looking like holy temples. The culture clothing certainly is interesting and reminds me of Native Americans, while their history is fascinating. Being in great harmony with the dragons, and even naming a ritual dance after them, the eventual extinction of these creatures must have been heartbreaking. It's also interesting that the two dragons, Ron and Shah, are called the Masters, also calling back to the root of firebending. A hierarchical system is given. The Sun Warriors follow the dragons, do rituals and honor them with speech. In return, the eternal flame was given to them by the dragons. One of the biggest and best aspects of Avatar: The Last Airbender certainly is its themes, and Firebending Masters surely doesn't come short on that either. First, there is always an underlying theme of progression and development, about overcoming the past and restoring peace. And the essence of that is with Iroh. He redeemed himself through not killing a fascinating species, and even lied about it, saying that he himself had done the deed only to protect these poor creatures from absolute annihilation. Then there are the lessons about the element of fire, that fire can also be life. Although in all of the past episodes we've been shown time and time again that fire is destruction and pain. There is no beauty in it, yet this episode challenges this worldview and presents an alternative: to live with fire in balance and harmony. Which brings us to the climactic moment of the episode, the Dragon Dance. Aesthetical, philosophical, cultural and ethical elements come together in this beautiful moment of symmetry. Aang and Zuko were polar opposites of one another until this moment, but now they have found their balance and harmony. Hey you guys, thank you very much for watching this video. It was a blast to make. I've been wanting to make a video about my favorite Avatar episode for a long time, and there it is. I hope you also are as fascinated by this episode as I am. Only one quick word, I have discovered that for me it would be best to upload the videos on Friday, and that's the plan that I will be sticking to. And yeah, don't forget to subscribe to this channel and turn on notifications, it helps a lot. See you next Friday.